Hello and welcome everyone. Myself Abhijit and a very good morning or good evening to you all based on from where you are joining. Today before we start, can you please confirm that you all can hear me well and see my screen? Okay, good. So this is the seventh day of DevOps training, and before starting today's session, let's have a small recap of last day's topic. Okay, last day we saw about Chef. We saw what Chef is, then we saw the different components of Chef, which is Chef Workstation, Chef Server, and Chef Nodes. Then we saw about pull and push-based configuration management system. Then we saw about resource, recipes, cookbooks, roles, etc. Those terminologies that are related with Chef. Then we saw how to write custom recipes, then how to test recipes locally. Then we saw the hosted Chef server, how to use it. Then finally we saw how to create and bootstrap the Chef node using the Knife CLI tool. Okay, did you all try it out? So do you have any doubt regarding that, regarding the topics that we covered last day? Today also we'll be continuing with Chef, and today we'll be seeing how to configure nodes using the setup that we have seen yesterday. Okay, Vivek is asking what is the difference between hosted Chef server and Chef server. Vivek, as I mentioned, Chef server is available as an open source version also. So in that case, you will get the Chef server software, but you will have to host that software on your own. Like you will have to host that particular server on your own if you want to have a Chef server on your own. But in the case of hosted Chef server, what Chef does is Chef provides you with an already hosted Chef server environment so that you can just create an account and you will be able to make use of the Chef server instead of you instead of you using the open source Chef server version and hosting it on your own. Okay, so that is the difference between Chef server and hosted Chef server. Is it clear? So Vivek is asking, but in case of let's say closed environment, we need a Chef server, right? Yes, Vivek. If you are not using the if you don't want to use the Chef cloud environment, it is a hosted Chef server, then you can definitely go with your own Chef server, which is hosted by you, where you will have full control over. But that is what I mentioned. Like you will have to keep in mind that the UI that you will be seeing on the open source Chef server version will be different from that what you see at the moment, like from where the hosted Chef server, that will be entirely different. So that is the only thing that you have to keep in mind. Otherwise, you should be able to use the full functionality of Chef server. Okay. So any other doubt? Anyone? Okay. So if there are no doubts, then we'll start with today's session. Okay. So shall we start? Okay. Virendra is asking, how can we set the lab of Chef in VM virtual machine? Okay, so Virendra, what uh, I'll do is when I share the today's presentation, I'll send you the code for the virtual machine also. Let me see whether I can find that one, and then I'll share the code also so that you can see that code. Okay, so normally only thing that you have to keep in mind is when you create the virtual machine using VMware or VirtualBox, at that time, what you have to do is you should have the Ruby installed and all the Chef development kit also pre-installed. That is the only thing that you have to keep in mind when you're working with Chef Workstation. But in the case of Chef Server, you'll have to use the hosted Chef Server because that hosting your own Chef Server is a very difficult task. It is not for beginners. So for now, please use hosted Chef Server for your experimentation and all. And regarding Chef Node, you can create any machine with SSHD installed. So that is pretty straightforward. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll try to share the Vagrant file, which can be the code for the Vagrant file, which can be used for you to create the machine. Okay, after this session. Okay, so but I would suggest like that is the reason why we are going with Docker. As I mentioned, Docker is clearly replacing Vagrant. So I would suggest, I would strongly recommend you use Docker containers for your experimentation so that you will be pretty much comfortable with Docker by the end of the session, end of this course. Okay. So any other doubt? Okay. So it looks like there are no other doubts. So let me proceed with today's session. So today we'll be seeing Chef in detail, like we'll be seeing the practical aspect of how to configure nodes. Okay, during the if you remember during the last class at the end, what we have done is we have created a Chef workstation, then we have created a Chef node, and we have bootstrapped our Chef node. That is what we done. So when we go to our Chef server, we can see the new node that we created, and if you click on that node, you will see the attributes of that particular node. Okay, so this is my Chef workstation, and this is the Chef node. Okay, so we'll be starting from there. Okay, so to rewind last class, Chef is a powerful automation platform. It has three components: Chef workstation, Chef server, and Chef node. So as DevOps professional, you will only be working on Chef workstation. Okay, Kathy is saying just join. Kathy, we are only starting. We are just having doubt clearance session previously. Okay, so we are just starting. So as I was saying, when we are working with Chef, we have to keep in mind about the three components of Chef. First is Chef workstation, then Chef server, and Chef node. So as DevOps professional, you will be working on Chef workstation alone. You won't be working on Chef node. You will be using Chef workstation, and using Chef workstation you will be creating your configuration files or cookbooks, and you'll be uploading those cookbooks to your Chef server, and the Chef node will be constantly or periodically polling the Chef server to get the new configuration information. Okay, so in the Chef workstation you will have the Chef development kit and the knife tools installed, and using knife only you will be communicating with Chef server. Another use of knife tool is that it is used during the bootstrapping process as well. So bootstrapping is the only occurrence where the workstation will be communicating with the Chef node directly. This will happen at the beginning when a new or fresh Chef node is created. At that time, you'll have to manually execute the knife bootstrapping command inside Chef workstation, which will bootstrap the Chef node. By bootstrapping, what do you mean by bootstrapping is that it will install the Chef client, Chef agent, which is Chef client, and also other related tools to that one, to the Chef node. Okay. So one more thing you have to keep in mind is that Chef is a pull-based configuration management tool where the nodes will be constantly polling the Chef server to get the configuration information. Another thing is whenever the polling of that Chef server inside Chef node happens by the command, by the tool called Chef client, and whenever the Chef client is executed, a tool called Ohio will also be executed, which will collect the details of the nodes to have a documentation or to know the current state of the application, including operating system and all those things. Okay, and another important thing that you have to always keep in mind is that in the case of Chef, the actual execution of configuration or the actual configuration management is done within the Chef node by the Chef client itself. So the Chef client will be pulling the configuration information from the Chef server, and based on that information, the Chef client will be configuring the node on its own. So chef server is not configuring the chef nodes. Okay, so these are the things that you'll have to keep in mind when you think about chef. Okay, so today we are going to install software, so tools on the node using the server. So now the workstation won't be talking to node directly at all because we have already bootstrapped. So the only occurrence where the workstation will be communicating with the node is over. So that part is over. Now we'll be seeing how to configure. Okay, so this one we saw the architecture of chef. Now, running of chef client command by nodes is called conversion. So whenever you execute a chef client, that process is called convergence. Okay, so convergence is the process where the chef client is run and the configuration information will be pulled from the chef server to the node. Okay, now this is the command that you use to run the chef client in the node. It is chef client minus I followed by the time in seconds. So what this mean, if you give say minus I 1800, then what it means is this will be the chef client will be executed every 1800 seconds. Okay, so by default the time that we use, the periodic schedule, the scheduled time we use for chef is 30 minutes, but based on your requirement you will be able to change it. So if you give say minus I and 30, that means it will hold the server every 30 seconds. But please make sure that like don't in the production environment you won't be reducing the time, because you don't want the nodes to be always polling the server. It will load the server. It will increase the load on the server. Okay. Now another thing is that like you can have node creation and bootstrapping in one script. Like the node creation, and after the creation itself you can start the bootstrapping. So all those things you'll be able to take care of. Okay. So now let's go to practicals. Now, as I mentioned, now this is the chef workstation and this is the chef node. So Nikhil is asking 1800 is in seconds and it repeats the polling time, right? Yes, Nikhil, 1800 is in seconds, like 1800 seconds. Okay, now this is the chef node, and here I can insert like chef hyphen client minus I followed by the seconds where it will be periodically executing. So now I'll be giving say 30 seconds to show you the periodic execution, and after 30 seconds it will begin. Okay, so while that is happening, I showed you last time like knife node list. If you see, you will see the list of nodes that are there in the chef server at the moment, which is one node. And if you want to get details of this particular node, then what you can do is you can use the command knife node show followed by the node name. So when you execute that command, you will get details about that particular node. So meanwhile, see, after 30 seconds, it started the execution, like it pulled the particular server, the chef server, and it's pulling. If there is any change of, if there is any configuration information, then it will be pulling at this time. Okay, since it has got empty run list, it is not doing anything. So now it is waiting, and after 30 seconds, it will be executed again. Okay, so Nikhil is asking in real-time projects for better performance, what is follow, lower time or greater time? Nikhil, actually in real-time projects, like as I mentioned, the default timing used in the case of Chef is say 1800, which is 1800 seconds, which is 30 minutes. But based on the requirement, like if your particular application is not configured constantly or periodically, then what you can do is you can even increase the time. So based on your requirement, you can take care of that one. So the default timing used is 30 minutes. Okay, so as you can see, it executed again and again. So it will execute every 30 minutes. So I'll stop this execution, and As I was saying, in the chef workstation, when I execute the command chef node show followed by the node name, I can see the details, a shortened details of that particular node, like some important items like run list, IP address, and environment platform. All those things I'll be able to see using the knife node show command. Okay. Now, if you use -r flag to this particular command, then what you will see is, or what you will get is only the run list. It will only show the run list that are associated with that particular node. Okay. Similarly, if you use say -l, then what you'll get is you will get a very detailed node information. See, you will get a lot of information, including the details that are collected by the chef, sorry, Ohio tool. So you will get lot of information regarding that particular chef node when you execute the command with -l flag. Okay. Now we are going to see how to add a run list to a node. Okay. So first let's go to ls-l cookbooks API. So this is the cookbook that I created last day during the last session. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my recipe that I created, the default recipe that I created to as the run list to my node. Okay, so for that I'll use the command knife node run underscore list add followed by the node name, which is chef node AB1 followed by the recipe name. So in order to add a recipe, what you will be doing is you'll be adding the recipe like this. So here what it means is if you give that recipes followed by the cookbook name, what it will do is it will take the default recipe inside the cookbook and assign it to the run list of the chef node AB. Okay, so now I'll execute this command, and now what is happening is now this is adding this command is now adding this particular recipe as to the run list of this chef node AB1. So now you can see that the run list recipe avi is being added to the chef node AB1. So now if I go to this particular section, I'll just refresh this page, and when I go to that node inside details, if I go down, then you can see the run list, it has got one recipe. Earlier it was empty, but now it has got one recipe. Okay, now like if you use say knife node show chef node AB1 minus r, then you will see the run list. Okay, so Vivek is asking, what does a run list mean? Okay, Vivek, a run list means that like what are the things that you want a node to do, or what are the things that you want a node to execute, or what are information, like this is how you'll be connecting a particular cookbook or a recipe with a node using run list. So if you want to specify or configure a particular node with something, then what you'll be doing is you'll be adding that particular recipe or cookbook as run list for that particular node. So basically run list means what are the things that a particular node should do to configure themselves, or what are the configurations that are there for that particular node. Is it clear? Something, but that will be taken care by the chef server. No, see, now only it is linked, like see, when you add this chef node run list add, at that time only run list is attached with the chef server for that corresponding node. Previously when I executed chef client, there was no, see, node chef node AB has an empty run list. There was no run list attached before I executed this command. That is why it didn't configure anything. So now let's see that one. So now if I do ls-l /root, I can see that there is no file in that particular folder. So now what I'll do is I can execute the chef client command in my chef node. Okay, so this will be periodically running, but in order to show you how it is done, I'm going to manually execute it. So here I can execute like minus I 30, which will be executed every 30 seconds. So I can just execute like this will execute the chef client once. We are not scheduling, here we are only executing this once for our testing purpose. Okay, so now when we execute the chef client command in our chef node, what will happen is it will contact the chef server, and chef server will say that okay, this particular node, or the node named chef node AB1, which is where we are at, that node has one run list, which is this API run list, and that is to be executed. Now that configuration need to be applied to this particular node. Okay, see now it is resolving for run list cookbook. It has identified this particular cookbook, and now it is compiling and executing that particular cookbook recipe. Is it clear? So based on our recipe, it has created a file named chef-test1.txt inside our root folder, and it has ensured that this is the particular content of that file and the permissions and ownership and group for that particular file. Okay, sorry. If I execute ls minus l, you can see the new file is there now. So if I do cat say slash root, then chef test1, you can see the content of that file. Did you understand why we are using run list now, Vivek? Is it clear? It's not clear. Okay, so Kyazi also has the same doubt. Okay, let me explain. Okay, so now, okay, so what I'll do is I'll remove this particular file. Root, say chef, that's this one. This file I removed. So if I do ls minus l, slash root, you can see that file is no longer there in my local node or in my load. Okay, so now you will be able to delete or manipulate your run list from your server itself. So what I'll be doing is I'm going to delete this particular run list. Okay, so wait, available recipes. Okay, so what I did is I have removed that particular run list. So if I refresh this, so if I refresh this, now you can see that there is no run list for this particular node, which is chef node AB1. Okay, so now we are starting fresh. Till now, is it clear, Vivek and Khyati? So now what will I get if I execute this command? Knife node show chef node AB1 minus R. What will I get? What are the run lists that are associated with this one, this particular node? Can you tell me? None. Okay. So now if I execute this one, I'll get an empty run list because now there are no run lists associated with this particular node. Okay. So now what I am going to do is I am going to execute the chef client command in my node. So this is about configuring, like the main focus of this chef as a configuration tool is that it is used for configuring nodes. So now here our purpose is to configure this particular node, which is chef node. So instead of manually configuring that machine, what we are doing is we are uh, creating a repository or cookbook inside our workstation, and using that cookbook we are uploading that cookbook and recipes to the chef server, and from that chef server this node will automatically pull and configure itself. Okay, so now if I execute chef client, can you tell me what will happen? Will it do anything? Will it get anything to execute? So, or will it know that what are the things, or which recipe to execute to configure this machine? No, because run list is empty. So since the run list is empty, it is saying that the chef node has an empty run list. Okay, so there is nothing to execute. But what we want to do is we want to have this file created. We want to create, like if I go to say cat cookbook, okay, recipe default.rb. You can see that inside this recipe file, what I have done is I want to create a file. I want to make sure that my node has this particular file with this content available in this location. Okay, but since we haven't specified in the run list, a chef doesn't know that particular recipe is linked to is meant for this particular node. So now there is no connection between that node and the recipe. Now you have a recipe, you have a node, but there is no connection between that node and that recipe. Is it clear? Now chef doesn't know that that recipe is meant to be executed or meant to be used for configuring that particular node. Okay, Khadi is asking .rb. .rb is the file extension for Ruby files. Okay, so now there is no connection between that recipe file and the chef node. Okay, so now what we want is when we execute chef client in our chef node, what we want to do is we want this particular node to get this particular recipe as the configuration information and execute that configuration information and create this file inside that node. That is our aim. For that, we have to add run list. So whatever we specify in the run list, it will be executed by the node when it gets the configuration information. So if you want to execute a particular recipe in a node, then we have to assign that particular recipe to the run list of that node. Is it clear? For that, now if I am going to link the particular recipe, which is API inside the cookbook API. So Vivek is saying, so that recipe is where? Vivek, that recipe is in my workstation, and I have uploaded that recipe to my server, to my web server. So now the recipe resides in this particular web server. So if I go to say policy and cookbooks, you can see this particular cookbook. And if I go to contents and recipes, you can see my default.rb file in that chef server. So now the chef server is in my server. So when you execute this command, what it means is it will link that particular recipe to the run list of this particular node. So now you can see the run list is empty, but after executing this one, what it will do is it will add this particular recipe to the run list of this particular node. Okay, so actually something, can you tell me which is the ongoing topic in chef joined late due to network issues? Okay, we just now started. So now after bootstrapping, we are proceeding further. So now we are configuring, we are seeing how to configure nodes with the help of chef. Okay, so now when we execute this command, this particular recipe has been added as the run list for this particular node. Okay, now if I refresh this particular page in the web server, you can see that a run list named API is associated with this particular node now. So now can you tell me what will happen? Like if I go to if I execute this chef client, can anyone tell me what will happen? What is meant to happen? Okay, so see, now it gets okay, it knows now that okay, it is expected to execute that recipe. Exactly, this means recipe will execute. So it now knows that okay, I am expected to execute this recipe in this particular cookbook. So it has executed that, and it has created that file in its local folder. Okay, so if I do say ls slash root, then you will have that particular file. And if you do cat and that particular file name, you will see that file with that particular content. Now is it clear? Is run list clear to all of you? Any doubt? So without run list, you will be having your independent components, like you will have your recipe, you will have your notes, but there is no connection between that recipe. You haven't connected like which recipe to be executed on which node. You haven't specified that on. So in order to specify that on, you will be using run list. Okay. Now Now, if you want to reset this particular run list, then what you can do is, instead of using this run list add, what you can do is, you can do like, whenever you execute this add command, it will be adding, it will be adding the recipe to that run list. It will be appending to the existing run list. It won't be resetting the thing. So in order to reset, you will have to use the set command. We'll see how to use this one. So for that, what I'm going to do is, I have like, in my local machine, in this particular folder, I have cookbooks. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, Vivek is asking why are we resetting. We'll see. So for what I'm going to do is, I am going to create a new recipe. Okay. Now inside this cookbooks API recipes default folder, I am going to duplicate this particular recipe and edit that. Okay. I'll give one name which is, say, default3.rb. Okay. So now if I go to say ls cookbooks API recipes folder, you can see that there are two recipe files now. Earlier there was only default.rb. Now I have created one default3.rb as well. Okay, so now I'm going to edit that particular file, particular recipe. So recipes default3.rb, I'm going to edit. So this is the default 3. Then here I'm going to create a new file called test3. Okay, then so this actually something, this is workstation node. Yes, okay, this is workstation. So this file is created using the default 3 recipe. Okay, so everything else I am keeping the same. So this recipe is meant to create a new file named chef-test3.txt, and this should be the content of that particular file. Okay, so now I have two files. Okay, so first thing what we'll be doing is, we'll be testing that particular recipe in our local machine. So for that, I'll use chef apply followed by the path of that recipe. So cookbook recipes, then default 3.rb. Okay, now if I do ls/root in my workstation, you can see that chef -test3.txt is created, and that recipe, there is no error in that recipe. Okay, so now let me ask you one thing. If I try to add this particular recipe to the run list of my node, will it work now? Can anyone tell me, will it work? Kathy is saying no. So Kathy, can you tell me why? Prashant is saying no. Okay, so Pushan is saying yes. Kathy is saying we have to set. Okay, so if you set, will it work? Like if I execute, say, knife node run list add chef node AB1 followed by the recipe name, will it work? Actually saying yes. Okay, actually we are missing one step here. Can anyone tell me what is that step that we are missing before adding that particular recipe to the run list? Can anyone tell me? Prashant is saying reset. No, Prashant, not reset. Can anyone tell me? Virendra is saying apply. Virendra, can you elaborate on actually saying upload? Exactly. So now first thing that you have to do is, this particular recipe is now there only on your workstation. So if I uh, go to my chef server, and if I go to my cookbook, if I go to this content of this cookbook, inside recipes, I can see only one recipe. So the new recipe that I created is not yet uploaded to the chef server. So first step that you have to do is to upload it to the chef server. Is it clear? So that is the first step. So please don't forget that. So most of the people will forget to upload and say that, okay, when I try to add a particular recipe to your run list, it's not working. And also make sure that you upload your recipe as soon as it's done or it's ready. Okay, so we are giving the cookbook name to upload. So nice cookbook upload followed by the cookbook name. Okay, so here it is saying uploading API version 0.1.0. So now this is the process of uploading that cookbook. Okay, so now if I go to this page and refresh, inside contents recipe, I can see two recipes. See, default and default 3. See, now our recipe is available in the cookbook. Sorry, chef repo or chef server. Okay, now we'll be able to add that particular thing to the run list. Okay, so now I want to show you something. See, now what is the current item in this run list. So for chef node AB1, what is the recipe that we have in the run list? We have one recipe. So when I specify recipe followed by this cookbook name, it will automatically use the default.rb. It means that you are specifying the default recipe. Okay, so now how can I specify that I want to execute the default 3.rb file, the new recipe that we created? For that, what you have to do is you have to use this recipe inside that cookbook name colon followed by the recipe name. So here I will be specifying default 3. So now this particular name will refer to the default 3.rb file inside this particular cookbook. Is it clear? And here I am using add. Okay, so when I use this add, what it will do is it will add this recipe also to that particular run list. So now this node has two items, two recipes in the run list. First one is the default recipe and the default 3 recipe. Is it clear? That is the use of using add. Is it clear? Now, if I execute chef client in this one, can anyone tell me what will happen? So this is my current root folder. Then if I execute a chef client, can you tell me what will happen? So meanwhile, Prashant is asking, can we make the current recipe as default? Prashant, yes, if you want to make the current recipe as default, then you have to rename the current default.rb file and change it to something else and rename this default 3.rb to default.rb. Then it will consider it as the default recipe. Okay, so mainly the name default.rb, the file name, the recipe with name default.rb will be considered as the default recipe. So Vivek is saying we'll see two recipes. Yes. So this node will be executing two recipes. So since chef is idempotent, the first recipe it will say that it's already up to date because that particular file is already there, because it was already executed. See, it is saying up to date. The first recipe is already up to date. So it found say two run lists. Like first is the default recipe and the new recipe file that created. So it executed the second recipe after ensuring that the first recipe is already executed. So now if I go to ls root, you can see two files, chef test 1 and chef test 3. So if I do say cat chef hyphen test 3.txt, sorry, I have to use slash root. Okay, I can see the content of the new file. So this is how you can add multiple recipes to the run list. Okay, now I want to show you the difference between uh, that set add and set. Okay, so now what if you only want this particular recipe, this default 3 to be there on the run list of this particular node? I don't want to add to that default recipe. I only want this recipe to be in the run list of that particular machine. So for that, what you can do is instead of this run list add, you can execute the command and execute the command set. So now what it will do is it will remove the run list and only add this particular recipe to the run list. See, now it has got only one item, one recipe in the run list, which is the one that we added. That is the difference of using run list add and run list set. Okay, and another thing is you can always give multiple recipes. Like if you can give comma separated list here, and you can add multiple recipes using the same command. Actually saying so run list contains set of recipes. Yes, okay, run list will contain set of recipes, but we can have other options like roles also that we'll see in this session, like later on in the session. Khyadi is asking, set will replace earlier list. Yes, Khyadi. Set will be replacing the existing list with the new one that we specify in that command. Okay. Now, if you want to remove a particular run list, like let me add the original recipe also. So I'll add this also. So now after this, we'll have two items in our run list. And in after having this, and if I want to remove this particular recipe, then what I have to do is I have to execute the command uh, knife node run list. Here instead of set or add, I'll use remove, followed by the node name and the recipe name to be removed. So if I execute this one, what it will do is it will remove this particular default 3 dot recipe from the run list. So now it will only have the default recipe with linked with this particular node. Okay. Similarly, if you go to this chef server, and if you go to the node, and in this run list, if you want to add, now you can see that only the default default recipe is there in the run list. So if you want to add the new recipes, it will show the list of available recipes, and I just need to drag and drop to add that particular recipe also to the run list and press the save run list. So this is how you can add using the graphical user interface of the chef server. So now you have two recipes in the run list. Okay. So now if I use say knife, you can use knife search node. Shall this something by drag and drop only we can add in run list. If you are using chef server, yes, then yes, you can only use drag and drop, but you can use the commands like I executed the set and add commands, run list, these commands can be used to do that programmatically. But if you are using the graphical user interface of the chef server, then you will have to drag and drop to add it to the run list. Okay. Now this one we saw about chef client, then node list we saw, then we saw how to add run list. To now we are going to see how to search for the node details. Okay, so for that what you can do is Akhil is asking yellow background is which node? You mean this one? This is the client, this is the chef node, and this is the chef workstation. See, chef workstation and chef node. Is it clear, Akhil? Okay, now if you want to search for a particular node, then what you can do is you can execute the command knife search node, and say if you specify the /star, then it will show you all the nodes. Okay, see, it will give you the node name and the details related to that node, including the run list and recipes. Okay, similarly you will be able to use filters, like if you want to use say see the list of nodes which has the recipe, which uses the recipes API, then what you can do is you can execute the command like this. So there are a lot of options in which you can search the thing. Okay, so there are a lot of options available which you can try out later and see, like Ubuntu search, then recipes you can using that you can search, and there are a lot of options available. Okay, now what we are going to do is we are going to see a more practical example. So what we are going to do is we are going to configure our node to work as a web server. Okay, so this is my local machine. I have one file named my web server in the current directory. This is one recipe file that I created to save time. So here I am going to copy it to cookbooks API recipes folder. Okay, now inside my workstation, if I do ls cookbooks API recipes, you can see the new recipe added here. Vivek is asking, can you please open the recipe file? Vivek, that is what I'm going to show you now. Okay. Now, if I I'm going to edit. I'm going to show you and explain you that particular recipe file. Okay, so this is my recipe file. So in this one, my recipe file name is my web server, and here what I have done is I am using three resources. See, first is a package resource, then I am using a template resource and a service resource. Okay, so this I'll come to that. So this is variable. So here I am specifying two variables. First variable name is time and second variable name is node. So here I am using the time module of Ruby using time.new strf time. I am getting the current time, and the node I am getting from the chef configuration. So if you want to get details about the node name and all, then you'll be using the format like this, like chef colon config and followed by the colon and the node name, the name of that particular item that you want to get. So this will give you the current node name. So the current node name will be taken from the chef configuration and saved in this particular variable. Vivek is asking, this is what I was asking you yesterday. Can we use Chef to install web service, WebLogic, WebSphere, application server, Tomcat, etc.? Yes, Vivek, that is the purpose of having Chef, right? See, Chef is used to configure your system. Like I mentioned, it can be used to install softwares, uninstall softwares, create files, delete files, all those things. Okay, so that is what I mentioned. You will be able to understand more when you are patient and let me complete the things. Okay, one step at a time. That is what we should do. Okay, so here I have two variables, time and node, and then I have a package resource. Here I want to install. I am specifying that it should install Apache 2 web server on that particular node. So Vikas Kaushal, can you please explain node variable? See, this is how you add variables in Ruby file. So this is the variable name, which is time and node, and using the time, this time is a module, a Ruby module. By default it will be there, and I am getting the current time, current node time from in this particular variable. Okay, and this one, what it will give is, here you are using this particular chef config to get the current name of the node. Like if I am executing in this particular node, then what I'll do is, what I'll get is, I'll get this particular node name, like chef node AB1. So that is the purpose of using this command. So using this command, so that variable, that name, it will be saved in my variable, which is node. So Akhil is asking, where are this variable defined? See, Akhil, we are defining that variable here. We are defining that variable here. So this variable is only available for this particular recipe. Okay, this is custom variable that we are creating inside our recipe. This is the global section or global array or global list from where we are getting the node name. Okay, so as I mentioned, the first resource that we are going is to a package resource, and we are specifying that Apache 2 is the package that should be installed, and the action is install. So here, as you can see, you're not specifying what is the package manager to use, whether it is apt-get or yum or anything. So can you tell me how the node will, or chef client will identify which package manager to use? I explained it last class. Akhil is saying Ohio. Exactly, Akhil. Very good. So Ohio, based on the Ohio output, the node will know that, okay, this particular system is running Ubuntu operating system, so it should use the package manager as apt-get. So the decider should be apt-get. So that is another advantage of using chef. So when you're using this package resource type, then you don't have to specify, you don't have to manually specify which package manager to use. It will automatically identify that based on the Ohio output. Okay, so this will install the Apache 2 web server on the node. Then this template resource type is used to use a particular file as template. Now if I go to, okay, so now, okay, let me show you this one. See, if I go to say ls chef repo, cookbooks API folder. You can see, I'll use ls-l so that it will be clear. So you can see these are the folders that are there in my default cookbook that I created. Okay, so in order to use a template, what you have to do is you have to create a template folder. So here the source of the template file will be specifying only the name of the file. So basically chef will expect that file to be in a particular location. So for that, what you have to do is you have to create a file like inside this chef repo folder, cookbooks API. Inside my cookbooks folder, I have to create one folder called templates, and then another for inside the templates I'll need to create a folder called default. Okay, so since I am using, since I am going to create two directory, I will be using the -p flag. Okay, so now if I execute this one, it will create, like now if I do ls-l, you can see this template folder is created, and inside templates folder you can see one default folder also is created. So Akhil is asking, this is which node? Akhil, this is the chef repo folder. Since we have mapped that chef repo folder from our local machine to within the workstation, the same folders that we create in my local machine will be made available within our workstation. So this one we are doing effectively within the workstation, because as DevOps professional you will be working only with the workstation. So clear? So what I have done is I have created a folder called templates, and inside templates I have created a default folder. Okay, so now coming back to this one template, we are saying that this is the file, this is the destination. It should create a file in this named index.html in this particular path inside this inside the node where this particular recipe will be executed, and it is specifying that the source of that particular template, the source for this particular file is a file named index.html.erb. So you should create a file named index.html.erb inside this particular folder, templates default folder. So I have already created that file. So this is the file that I created. I am going to copy it inside my templates folder. Okay, so now if I do go to this particular folder, I can see this particular file, and let's see what is the content of that particular file. Kathy is asking why we copy. Kathy, I want to save time, because if I type the whole template, it will take time. So that is the reason why I already created that file in my local directory, and I am only copying it to the desired directory as and when I need it, so that I can show you without typing the whole thing. Okay, so this is the content of that file. So this is we are creating an HTML. See the extension .erb. This .erb is the extension used for template files in the case of Ruby. So when you are working with Ruby, if you see a file named .erb, file ending with .erb, that means it is a Ruby template file. So basically what you can do is inside this Ruby template file, you can have variables specified like this. You can have variables specified like this, and those variables will be replaced, those variables will be replaced with the actual value when the template file is copied. So when you use this template resource to copy the source file, like create this file from this particular source file, what it will do is it will automatically replace these variables. So if you specify within this this notation, what it means is with this notation, what it means is here we are specifying a variable, and this variable should be replaced with the actual value when this template resource creates that particular destination file from that source. So here inside the template resource, we are specifying the variables that are to be passed along with that particular for this template resource. So here we are passing four variables. First is title. Here we are giving a title as API. Then description, DESC, we are giving as DevOps Pro. And time, we are passing this particular variable. And node, we are passing this particular variable. So see these four variables: title, description, time, node. These are the variables that we are using inside the template file. So title, description, time, and nodes. These are the variables that we are using inside the template. So when this particular recipe is executed, at that time, when this index.html file is created, at that time these particular variables will be replaced with the actual names. Okay. Finally, the service resource, which will ensure that this is used to ensure that the Apache 2, which is already installed, is enabled and started. If it is not enabled, it will be enabled and it will be started. Okay, is this clear? Is this recipe clear to all of you? Is this my web server.rb recipe file? Is this clear to all of you? Any doubt? Okay, Manoj is asking package name will be HTTPD in case of RPM based OS. Am I right? Package name will be HTTPD. Yes, yes. If it is for that one, then instead of Apache, like if you are to install Nginx, then you will be using Nginx instead of Apache 2. So it will depend on where it is. Yes, Akhil also is asking the same question. Like, but Apache 2 is for Debian based system and not in Red Hat. See, Akhil, basically, when you use a chef server, most of the times you'll be using the same recipe on machines of same stature or same nature or same operating system. So only thing is, if you use this package resource, the package manager, it will automatically determine, but the name of the package that you want to install, it should be given specifically. Like if you are using Debian based system, then of course you should use Apache 2, but if you are using say RPM based OS, then you should use HTTPD instead of Apache 2. So those things you'll have to take care of, but you don't have to specify the package manager. But the package name you will have to intelligently add. Okay. Okay. So now, what is the next step? If I want to apply this particular recipe to my node, what is the next step? Can anyone tell me? Upload. Prashant say upload. Exactly. So now I'm going to upload this cookbook. So knife, cookbook, upload, and the cookbook name. I'm uploading. So now after uploading the cookbook named Afi in my chef server will have three recipes: default.rb, default3.rb, and my web server.rb. Okay, so now it is uploaded. So if I go to this one and go to policy and cookbooks, and if I go to API, go to contents, then recipe, you can see three recipe files. So my web server.rb is also uploaded to the chef server now. Okay, now can you tell me how to link this particular recipe with my node? How to specify that this particular recipe should run when I execute chef client in my node? Kyadi is asking my web server.rb should be uploaded to chef server. Yes, Kyadi, whatever recipe file that you create in your workstation, it should be uploaded to chef server for the nodes to be able to see that and execute it. Okay, so can you tell me what is the next step that I should do in order for this particular node to execute this recipe when we execute chef client in that person is saying run list add. Yes, that is what we are going to add now. So knife node run list add, or I'm going to use set. I just want to execute this particular run list. Okay, so chef node ab1 followed by the recipe name. So here I'll be using recipe, and I'm using the cookbook name and followed by my recipe name, which is my web server. Okay, so now using this command, what I have specified is my run list for this particular node is now only this recipe, which is the my web server recipe. Okay, so now in my local machine, sorry, in my chef node, if I execute the command chef client, what it will do is it will identify, it will see that the run list to be executed is my web server, that is a recipe that we have specified, and it will identify that recipe from the run list, and now it is executing that particular recipe. So first it is installing using the apt package. See, it is automatically identifying which is a package manager to use. So apt package, it is installing this package named apache 2. Action is install, and once this is installed, then it will copy the template file. It will create the file from the template that we specified in the recipe, and once that also is complete, what it will do is it will make sure that this particular resource or this particular package or this particular service, which is apache 2, is up and running. It is enabled and also started. Okay, so see, apache is enabled, it is already enabled and it is started. So start service apache, so the service is also being started. So template file also created, and apache, all those things it did. See, template file, from the template file created this index.html file. Okay, now the execution is complete. Now what we have done is this particular node, sorry, now this particular node has web server installed. So now this particular node is a web server. Okay, so let's see whether we are able to, whether it is working as a web server. So here we do docker ps, you can see our node, this is the url port that is mapped for port 80. So let me browse this particular url, and you can see that particular index.html is being served. And see, if you go to this one, see, instead of this title, the title name, it has used the name, the particular, like, sorry, this one, title from, this title from node. So here instead of title, it has used the value that I have passed in the recipe, which is api. The node, instead of the node name, it has filled it with node chef node ab1. So that variable also is getting replaced, and description also it is taking from the value that we passed in the recipe file, and time also it is taking from the parameter that we passed, and also the node name. Is it clear? Any doubt till this point, anyone? So now what you have done is we have seen how to create a recipe to make a particular node serve as a web server. Okay, so any doubt till now, anyone? Okay, so what we'll do is we'll take a 15 minutes break. Now it's 8:03, and we'll be back at 8:18. Okay. Welcome back, everyone. So, can you all please confirm that you guys can hear me well and see my screen? Okay, good. So, let's proceed with the session. So, we saw how to create a web server, then template also we saw how to use templates. Now we are going to see about environments. Okay. So an environment is a way to map an organization's real life workflow to what can be configured and managed when using Chef Server. So basically, environment is a way to map the workflow. Like if you want to if you want to map a set of nodes to be a some particular thing, then you can use environments. So, or if you want to specify, okay, this particular cookbook is for this environment, like for test environment or production environment or staging environment, then you can specify that one. So, chef organization starts with a default environment which cannot be modified or deleted. So, basically, when you go to this chef server, and if you go to this environment section, you will see one underscore default environment. This is the default chef environment which cannot be modified or deleted. Okay, but you can create additional custom environments like production or staging or testing or development. These environments you will be able to create. Okay, so an environment is associated with one or more cookbook versions. Generally, that is how it is. Then nodes, roles, run lists, cookbooks, and cookbook versions and attributes specific to an organization can only be associated with a custom environment. Like if you want to group these things, then you should use custom environments. You won't be able to use the default environment. Okay, and when you create the environment, you will be able to specify environment variables. Then during that time, if you are using a variable or an attribute which is used by the cookbooks as well, then environment attributes or attributes that you are adding in the environment will override the attributes that you add in your cookbooks. Okay, so we'll see how to create environments, but in order to give you a clearer idea, like you can have versions for your cookbooks, and an environment is associated with one or more cookbook versions in general. So you can have, say, your development nodes using cookbooks 1.5.1 and staging nodes using cookbook 1.3.1 and production nodes using cookbook 1.2.1. Like all those things you'll be able to, like, because you won't want the latest version to be pushed to production nodes without testing it on development or staging environments. So that is the reason why you will be using environments. Okay, so we'll see how to work with environments now. Okay, so I am in my workstation. So if you go to this cookbooks folder, okay, then there is something called metadata.rb file. Akhil is asking, so Git is also used because of this. Akhil, the versioning that you see in this one is different from Git versioning. We'll be seeing that. So Git is used for your code version, that file, the text file based versioning system. But Chef requires Git account to be set up for you to do knife upload. But the versioning as such that we have specified in this environment is done by Chef itself. Maybe Chef is using the Git tool, but that I'm not sure. But Chef has its own version. So now if I go to that version number is stored in this metadata.rb. So if you go to this metadata.rb file, you see this version 0.1.00. So this is the default version of this particular cookbook named Avi. Okay, so if you want to change the version of this one, then what you can do is you can edit this metadata.rb file, and now I have edited from 0.1.0 to 0.1.1 and I saved it. Okay, so now in order to show some difference in my version, what I'm going to do is I am going to edit my recipe. So I'll go to nano. I'm going to edit my web server recipe. Okay, so sorry, recipes, my web server. So here what I'm going to do is in this title name, here I'm going to use, instead of this API, what I'm going to use API version 0.1.1. Okay, this is just to show that there is a change in this recipe in order to visually see the difference. Okay, so now what is the next step that I should do? I have edited my recipe and metadata.rb file. What is the next step that I should do? Can anyone tell me? We should upload this change. We should upload this cookbook because we have made a change to the cookbook, right? So for that, what Prashant is saying, upload. Exactly, Prashant. Okay, knife cookbook, upload followed by the cookbook name. Okay, so now this is getting uploaded. Sorry. Now it is uploaded. See, now the version that is uploaded is 0.1.1. Earlier it was 0.1.0. Now since we changed the version number in version name in metadata.rb file, it is now using that particular version. So now if I go to this terminal, if you go to, I'll just refresh this chef server, and I'll click on this node, and in this run list you can see that the run list is using version 0.1.1, which is the latest version. So since we haven't specified a particular version, it is always using the latest version of that web server, sorry, a latest version of that recipe. Okay, similarly, if you go to this policy, here you can see the current version is 0.1.1, which is being used by the node by default. And if you click that one, you can see old version and new version. And if you select this old version and go to contents, you can see the recipe, and inside my web, the name, the title used is API. But if you select this particular version, which is the latest 0.1.1, and go to recipes and my web server, you can see the title is API version 0.1.1. Okay, now we'll see how to use this versioning with environments. Okay, so now first thing what we are going to do is we are going to create environment. So first we can see there is cookbooks folder, notes folder, and roles folder. But in order to use environments, what you have to do is you have to create one directory named environments. Okay, so we have created the directory. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a dev environment. Okay, so for that, what I'll do is I'll give a name for the environment, which is dev, and I'll create a file with that name, which is dev.rb inside this environments directory we just now created. Okay, so here I'm going to create a give the name. So name of the environment I'm going to use is dev. Then I can give one description for the environment, which is a development environment. Then I can specify the cookbook that I want to use with this particular environment, and here I can specify the cookbook name. Then comma, what I can do is I can specify the version name, like I can specify okay equal to 0.1.1. So now what this means is this particular environment will use the cookbooks, like notes that are there in this particular environment will use the cookbook named API, and the version of that cookbook will be this one. The used version will be 0.1.1. Okay, so now I have created one dev.rb, which is the which is for dev environment, development environment. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create one more environment, and I'm going to give the name as production, like prod.rb for production. Okay, so here also I'll give the name as prod. Then description I can give, say, production environment. Then cookbook, here what I'll do is I'll use an older version of this API cookbook. So I'll be using, I'm going to use this 0.1.1 1.0 version. So for dev, I have used 0.1.1 version, and production, I have specified 0.1.0 version of the cookbook. Okay, so now I have created two environments, dev and prod. Okay, so now if you want to get the list of environments, what you have to do is you have to execute the command knife environment list environment list. If you execute this one, see, it is only showing the default environment, because you haven't created, like if you use you can use -w. So if you use -w, then you will also get the URL for that environment. Like say this one, like this URL will be used by advanced developers. Like advanced developers can use this URL to automate the process and all. So for now, we'll be using this environment name. As you can see, there is only one environment, which is the underscore default, which is the default environment. So now what we are going to do is we have created this dev and pro.rb, right? So these are the files that we are using to create our environments. So for the, in order to create a file from these environment files, what you have to do is we have to execute the command knife environment from file followed by the path of that particular environment. So here I'm going to create an environment from this dev.rb file. I'll execute this command knife environment from file environment slash the folder or the path of that environment file. And similarly, I'm going to use create environment from the prod.rb file. So now what I have done is I have created two more custom environments. So now if I execute this environment list, what will I get? I'll get three environments. See, underscore default, dev, and prod. So Khadi is asking what is w minus w used for. See Khadi, when I execute minus w, you will see the path. You will see the URL for that particular environment in our chef server. So if you copy this and go to that particular environment, that will automatically take you to that particular environment. So now if I refresh this one, I can see that new particular environment. See the same path. This is the path I am getting. So this is the URL that I am getting. So if you want to get the URL of that environment, then you can use that. So Khadi is asking what is meant by environment. Khadi, environment is grouping. Like you will have, if you want to say have a particular version of a cookbook to be used on say testing environment or production environment or staging environment, then you will be using environment. So environments, what you can do is based on the stage of development, you can categorize your notes and cookbooks so that uh, the latest version, the untested code or unverified code, will only be added to the testing environment. It won't be added to the production environment. Production environment, you can only have a stable code. All those things you will be able to configure with the help of environment. Okay, so as you can see, we have created two custom environments named dev, and you can see the description that we have added in that file, and here you can see the cookbook also. So this particular dev environment is using the cookbook API, and the version is 0.1.1. For production, it is using the API cookbook version 0.1.0. Okay, so now we are going to see how to add a node to an environment. Now we haven't specified an environment for the node. Okay, so first thing, one important thing that you have to keep in mind is one node can only be added to one environment. Like there is no logic of having a single node in both development and production environment, right? Because those are two entirely different environments. The functionality is entirely different. One is for testing and one is for production to serve your customers. So Akhil is asking this environment we create from which place? Workstation. Yes, Akhil. Everything that we are doing it inside the workstation, and we are adding that using this environment from file commands and all. We are adding that to the chef server. That is why you can see this in the chef server. But you can create from the chef server also, like using this create button, you will be able to create environments and all. But that is not the DevOps way. Like as DevOps professionals, you will not be using the graphical user interface much. Okay. Now we are going to see how to add a node to an environment. So there are three ways of adding a node to an environment. Okay, so first one is to manually add the environment dev in there is some in your node. There is some file called scat slash etc chef slash client dot. There is one file called client.rb inside slash etc slash chef in your local, sorry, in your chef node. So in that one, you can see the details here. So here, if you add one line, like say, um, here, what you can do is you can add something like, say, environment dev. If you add like this, that means this client will be added to the dev environment. Okay, I'm not going to do this, but because this is manually adding here. If you have say 5 or 8 or 10 or 100 node, then you will have to manually enter each node and add like, okay, this is dev, this is for production, etc., which you won't be doing. So this is one way of doing adding a node to an environment, but this is not a feasible option as there may be n number of nodes. Okay, so next thing or next method is to use, like in your workstation, you'll be able to execute, like at the time of bootstrapping, you can specify like when you use a knife bootstrap, then chef node 1 minus x root minus p p 1 2 3 4 and minus n. So chef node AB1, and after that, while at the time of bootstrap, what you can do is you can specify one flag called -e, and there you can specify which environment that particular node is. This is one way of doing that. Since I have already bootstrap, I'm not going to do that, but this is another way of adding a particular node to an environment. This is very useful because at the time of bootstrapping itself, you can add that particular node to an environment like development environment or production environment, like that. Okay, but now we already have the bootstrapping complete. Now what we'll see how to add the existing node to the environment. Okay, for that we'll be using the knife command. So for that, what you'll do is you'll use knife node. There is one command called environment set, followed by the name of that node, which is chef node AB1, followed by the environment name, which in our case it's dev. Okay, now if I execute this one, what it will do is it will add this particular node to the dev environment. Okay, so now the chef environment for that particular node is dev. Question is asking, please repeat first. Okay, see, the first method is inside your chef node, there is a file called client.rb in that slash etc slash chef. This is the content of that file. So here at the end, you can add environment space within double quotes dev or prod, like that. But this is a manual way. You won't be entering into your node right after bootstrapping. So this is not the feasible way to do this. So you won't be doing this. But this is one way of doing it. If you have any need, you can do this, but you as DevOps professionals, you won't be using this method. Okay, so that is what we'll be seeing here. Wait, yeah, see, at the end, like add a line like say slash etc slash chef. In this particular file, you will add one line like this. That is the first way. The second way is during bootstrap, you will specify one -e flag and give the dev name. But the third method is using the environment set inside workspace. Akhil is asking, in the third method using knife, how can we add multiple nodes? You'll be able to execute different lines, multiple lines. For now you can understand like that. Like if you want to, if you have a new node is say AB2, then you can do knife node environment underscore set chef node AB2 that prod or dev or whatever it is. Okay, now if I go in here and if I go to this nodes and if I select this particular, see here now the environment is dev. You can see the environment is dev. And if you want to change the environment using the GUI, then you can select the prod or dev in here. That is up to you. Okay, so now this particular node is added to the dev environment. Now can anyone tell me what will happen if I execute the chef client command? Which version will it use? Now this particular node is in dev environment. Now what will happen if I execute the chef client inside my chef node? Which recipe will be executed? Kali is saying 0.1. Actually is saying take from dev.rb. Yes, actually it will take the version 0.1.1, which is the latest one. See, in our policy, if you go to environments in dev, it is related to version 0.1.1. So it will be executing the version 0.1.1. So if I browse this page, I'll see the detail, the recipe with that version 0.1.1. Okay, now what I can do is here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this environment for that particular node from dev to production. So you'll be using the prod name. Kathy is asking why will it take? Kathy, we'll see. Why will it take version 0.1.1? We'll see, because for this dev, like see this particular dev environment, see this particular dev environment is related to that particular cookbook version, which is 0.1.1, and this production environment is linked with that cookbook version 0.1.0. Okay, so now what I've done is I have changed the environment for this node from dev to production, prod. Okay, now if I execute chef client, what it will do is it will execute the older version, which is 0.1.0 version, because this is in a production environment now. See, it is synchronizing cookbook API 0.1.0. Earlier it was 0.1.1. Okay, so now this is complete, and if I refresh, you will see that this version 0.1.1 will be replaced. It will be removed because this is now serving. This now used for configuration. It used an older version of that cookbook. Is it clear? That is how, like, see how easy for you to change environments, and also now if you can, you just need to change the environment, and accordingly a chef will know that okay, this version of cookbook you want to execute and all, and it will do those things. Okay, now if I go to this one, if I go to this web server, if I go to this nodes, and if I refresh chef server, you can see the environment is now production. Instead of dev, it is production. So this is how you can change your environments for node. Okay, so any doubt till this point? This one we saw, this one we saw. Khadi wants me to explain again. Khadi, see, using this command, using knife node environment set, we are specifying the environment. So we can specify, okay, this node belongs to dev environment or prod environment. So in dev environment, when we create, like, see, sorry, environments dev.rb, we created a file dev.rb inside environments, right? So inside that we have specified that okay, this particular environment will use cookbook name API and version number 0.1.1. Similarly, for production environment, what you have specified, prod environment, what you have specified is it uses the cookbook version API 0.1.0. So when you change the environment of that particular node, automatically it will take the corresponding version number you specified in that environment. Is it clear? That is what is happening here. That is why dev selects the version 0.1.1 and prod selects the version 0.1.0. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new cookbook. So I'll enter into the cookbooks folder and I'm going to generate a new cookbook. I'm going to name that cookbook as Apache. So now if I do ls, I can see that along with API cookbook, it has created a new cookbook called Apache. Kathy is asking, don't we have to manually update this on Chef server? No, when you execute this one, it is actually executing on the server. So server, it will change the environment of that particular node to dev or production. Okay, so now I created a new cookbook called Apache, and now I'm creating some folders like mkdir -p. Inside Apache, I'm creating files and default. So I'm creating a folder. Like before that, let me do ls-l Apache. This is the current content of that Apache cookbook. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a directory inside Apache cookbook, and I'm going to name the directories files, and inside that directory I'm creating one more directory called default. Okay, similarly I'm going to create a templates directory, and I'm doing this one. Okay, so now if I do ls this one, I can see two folders created, files and templates. And inside files you will have a default folder, and inside templates also you will have a default folder. So why I'm doing this is, like, inside files, like if you want to host your custom website, then you will have your website files like JavaScript, HTML, then CSS, all those files will be there, right? So all those things you will be adding inside this files folder, files default folder. Okay, so I already have one website in my local folder. So what I'll do is I'll use copy. There is one default.rb file. So this is the recipe file for this Apache cookbook that I have already created. So I'll explain to you. Before that, let me copy this one. Cookbooks, Apache recipe. Inside recipe, I am replacing the default recipe file inside this Apache cookbook with the one that I created earlier, and I am copying the HTML. There is one folder called HTML which will contain the CSS JavaScript for my custom web. Inside cookbooks Apache files default folder. Okay, now I am also going to copy one template file that I have inside chef repo cookbooks Apache templates default. Okay, now if I go in here, if I do ls-l Apache files HTML, sorry, files default, you can see there is one HTML folder which I just now copied. This is just a sample website. Okay, so it has a CSS, fonts, images, indexes, HTML, all those files available. Similarly, if I go to templates default, you can see the template file that I have copied. Okay, now I'll show you the template file. So if I do this, like, okay, nano, see here, this is an HTML file. There what I have done is inside some sections I have changed I have added some variables, like see here, description, time, node name, all these variables that I added. I used one default HTML file, and I created a template file from that HTML and created that one. Okay, so Akhil is asking, can we get the default files online, or we need to understand of Ruby to create this file? See, Akhil, this Ruby file, only difference from normal HTML file and HTML.erb file is that inside this .erb file you can create templates, like you can create you can use variables. Like see in here, you can use variables like this. Using this format, you can add variable name title, and when you execute, when the template resource is executed by Chef, it will automatically replace this section with that value for this particular variable. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload this particular cookbook to the upload to the Chef server. Okay, so the cookbook that I am uploading is Apache cookbook. Okay, so now it is uploading the Apache. So since there are some files associated with it, that files also will be uploaded to the Chef server. Okay, so since it has to upload some files, that is the reason why it is taking some time, because we have that HTML, CSS, so all those things will need to be uploaded. That is why it is taking some time. Okay, so this particular cookbook we'll be using when in the later part of the session. So after uploading, we'll be looking at some comments where we can compare the environments, or we can see we can see what is the difference, or which node is in which environment, or which environment is using which cookbook version, and all those things. Okay, so for that one, what you'll do is we'll use one command called knife environment list. So knife environment compare, if you do, you'll be able to compare. So we'll be executing those and seeing that. And it is asking where to check the logs for uploading details. Suppose if that fails, it will help to troubleshoot. 9 you'll be getting the response here. See, now it has it is saying upload one cookbook. If you get this message, that means it is uploaded. If you don't get, it will show you the error, like if there is any connection issue and all, then it will automatically give you the message here. Okay, so now if I go, sorry, if I go here, if I go to policy and cookbooks, here you can see the Apache cookbook that I have just now uploaded. So inside this content, if you go to this files folder, you can see all those files that I have copied. And if you go to this recipe folder, you'll see the default.rb file, and the content of that rb file is this one. Okay, so the content of the RB file is actually similar. I haven't shown you that. Okay, so let me show you the content of that RB file. So Apache recipes default.rb file. So this is similar. I have time node, and here I am remote directory. So this is how you'll be copying a directory. Like I'm using the HTML as the source directory, and I am copying that folder or that directory with including the subdirectories to this particular path. Okay, action is create recursive true means it will recursively copy, like subfolders and files that are inside that also will be copied. And then I'm using the template resource and I'm passing the variable source. Everything else is similar to what we saw. So only thing is using remote directory, we'll be able to copy directory. Like using the source, you can specify which source. Now I have copied HTML folder, so I'll be using that as the source. And here you will specify the path to which this particular folder should be copied. Okay, now to show you this knife environment compare, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new environment. So sudo environments. I'm going to create a new environment called staging. I'm going to name it as staging.rb. So here I'm giving name as staging, then description staging environment. Okay, so here I'm not going to give specify any cookbook version. Okay, so I only have name and environment description in this one. Okay, next thing is to create environment from this file. So knife environment from file, path of that particular file is staging.rb. Now once this environment is created, if you the environment is ready now, so if you go to environments, You can refresh this and you will see the staging environment also added here. So as the see, cookbook constraints are empty because we haven't specified any cookbook for this particular environment. Okay, now if you do knife environment list, you will get the list of environments that are there. Now we have 4 environments: underscore default, dev, prod, and staging. Now if you want to compare, what you can do is you can do compare dev, knife environment compare, and if you specify the environment name, then what it will do is it will compare that particular dev, like it will show you that particular dev. And if there are different cookbooks that you have added, then it will show you, okay, dev is using this cookbook version 0.1.1. Similarly, if you use say compare dev and prod, what it will do is it will show you 2 environments for the particular cookbook, for this particular cookbook, like dev, it is using this cookbook version 0.1.1. For production, it is using the cookbook version 0.1.0, and the cookbook name is API. Okay, now if you use say compare minus minus all, then what it will do is it will show you all the environments and the cookbooks that are associated with this particular chef server. Okay, see, now here you can see this Apache is showing latest, latest, and latest for all these things. That is because by default, if you don't specify this one, then it will use the latest or current version of that cookbook. So staging, we haven't specified any cookbook version. That is why it is using the latest version of the API cookbook as well. Okay, so now if you want to see this on, like if you use this dev and minus minus all, you can see Apache. Earlier when I executed this compare dev, I only saw API cookbook, right? Because that is the only constraint that I manually specified. But if you want to get all the cookbook constraints, then you can use minus minus all after when you use this compare. Okay, now if you want to delete a particular environment, what you can do is you can execute the command knife environment, sorry, environment delete followed by the environment name. So now what this will do is this will delete, this will ask for the permission. Once you give the permission, what it will do is it will delete this particular staging environment. So now if I refresh this, I can see that the staging environment is no longer there. So if you go to the environment, you can see only dev and prod. Okay, but please remember that this won't delete that RB file. Like if I do say ls environment, you can see 3 files: dev, prod, and staging, because these files is only for creating an environment. After creating the environment, that environment has no relation with these RB files. Okay, so that is why when you delete that environment, only that environment will be deleted. The file that we used to create that environment won't be deleted. Okay, and if you want to get the details of that environment, what you can do is knife environment show followed by that environment name. If you give, it will give you the details of that particular environment, including the cookbook versions and all the constraints that you have specified. Okay, now this one we saw. Now what we are going to do is we are going to create roles. So roles, a role in Chef is a categorization that describes what a specific machine is supposed to do, like what responsibilities does it have and what softwares and settings should be given to it. For instance, if you're testing your software, one server may include the database and web server components, while in production you plan on having these on separate servers. So based on roles, you'll be able to categorize the working or role of different nodes or different web servers or different servers. Okay, so with Chef, this can be as easy as assigning the first server to both roles and then assigning each. Like you'll be able to specify multiple roles for a web server, for a node as well. So we'll be seeing that. Okay, so now I am inside this Chef repo folder. If you do ls, you can see one folder called roles, right? So ls minus l, if you do roles, you see that started.rb. This is the default role that is there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new role. So for that, inside roles, I'm going to create a new role called webserver.rb. Okay, so inside that I'll give one name for my role. I'll be using the web server role. Then I'll use the description, and I'll give say my web server role. Then here I'll be able to specify the run list like for this particular role. So those nodes that are having this particular role, it should execute these recipes. I'll be able to specify like this. So I want to execute the recipe which I created just now, which is Apache. This is the cookbook that I created latest. So whenever you specify a role, specify this role, or whenever you assign this particular role to a node, then it will execute this run list. Okay, so now we have created the role. So if you do say now create the role file, but it is not create the role yet. So if you go to execute knife role list, it will be showing an empty role because we have only created the file, we haven't created the role from that one. So if you go to this role section, you can see that it is empty. Okay, so you can execute knife role from file, then you can give the path of that role. This is similar to that environment. So we are creating the role named web server from this particular file. So now if I go to this role section, you can see this web server role, and here you can see the run list as Apache. Okay, Apache cookbook. Okay, now if I execute knife role list, you will see one role, and that role is web server. Okay, now what we are going to see is we are going to see how to add this role to the nodes. Okay, so now before that, let me show like knife node show, sorry, chef node ab1. I'll just copy this because I'll be using this. So if I execute this command, it will show the roles and cookbook. See, now roles is empty, recipe is this one. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this node, sorry, add this role to the recipe. Sorry, add this role to the node. Okay, for that what I'll do is I'll use run list set followed by the node name followed by role. So instead of giving the recipe, what I'll use is I'll use role and followed by the role name. So now what it will do is instead of this run list recipe API server, it will add a role to this one. It won't be executing a recipe as such, it will be executing a role. So now if you use node show chef node ab1, you can see that it is executing a role. Okay, so the run list is now not a recipe, it is a role. So now inside the node, if I execute say chef client, what it will do is it will execute the Apache cookbook because we have specified this node, the role of this particular node is to act as a web server. Okay, see, it is taking the run list, it is Apache and synchronizing cookbooks. So it is identified that okay, the role of this particular node is to act as a web server, and inside web server we have specified the use of cookbook Apache. So it is executing that Apache cookbook, and it is creating the files that I have copied. So it is copying those files, then it is ensuring that particular Apache 2 is up and running. Okay, so now this is finished. So as I mentioned, this particular role or this particular cookbook, I have created a custom website and I have copied a custom website. So now if I refresh this, it will be showing a custom web page. Is showing a custom website. So you can see this description is coming from my variable, this name is coming from my variable, then this time is coming from my variable, this name of the node is coming from my variable, all those things. This is using the template that we created. Okay, now I want to show you how to change roles and all. So for that, let me create a new role. So nano roles, I'm using the role name as test server.rb. Okay, so name I'll give as test server, then description my test server role. Then in this run list, what I am going to do is, instead of using the Apache recipe, I am going to use the recipe API, then my web server recipe. So this is not custom website, this is a single page website that we saw earlier. Okay, so Akhil is asking, so role with knife can be used to create recipes. Is it comparable to roles in AWS? So it is not to create recipes, Akhil. It is used to execute. Like you can specify a list of recipes or a list of recipes to be executed, or connect a list of recipes or cookbooks to a particular role, and then you can just change the role of that node, and all those recipes will be executed, or all those cookbooks will be executed. You don't have to use add run list to add different recipes each and every time. You just need to change the content of that role. But in the case of AWS, roles are mainly used for permissions and all. That is not the case with this one. Here we are identifying the role of a particular node. So using role, we will be grouping a set, we will be categorizing a set of cookbooks or recipes to be executed into roles, and you will be adding the run list for a node as that role. So that when the chef client is executed inside that node, then all the cookbooks that are specified inside that node, inside that role, will be executed. Okay, so now I'm going to upload. So create the role. So knife role from file, then roles this test server.rb. So this will create a new role. Okay, so now it is ready. So if you do say knife role list, you will see two roles. One is my web server role and test server role. Okay, so now if I want to change the role of my chef node, what I can do is I can use this set chef run list set, and here instead of web server I can use test server. Just like that, what I have done is I have changed the role of this particular node from web server to test server. Okay, so Prashant is saying my screen is getting lag. Can all of you hear me well and see my screen? Is there any lag in my screen? And it is showing no. Prashant, others are able to. Oh, there is lag. Okay, there are some of you who is having the lag issue, but there are others who are not facing any issues. So I'll try to go slow so that it won't affect you. Okay. So Khadi is asking what is meant by role. Khadi, role is meant by like categorizing. Like if you have a set of cookbooks, and say if you want one node or one set of nodes to execute a certain set of cookbooks and another set of nodes to execute another set of cookbooks, then what you can do is you can create roles and set the run list for those set of nodes as that particular node. Then when the chef client is executed inside that node, then all those cookbooks that you specified inside that role will be executed. So it is just categorizing of cookbooks and recipes. Okay, so now what I have specified is I have changed the role of this particular node as a test server, and into something so same you can do via environment, right? Yes, environment also you can use, but role is mainly to like you can use the same role for multiple nodes, but in the case of environment you can't use the same environment. Sorry, you can use different environments for the same node. but you can use multiple roles for the same node. That is the difference. So environment is basically node specific, like it is related to the node, functionality of the node. But roles is mainly focusing on recipes and cookbooks, categorizing recipes and cookbooks. Okay, so now we have changed the role of this particular cookbook from web server to test server. So now if I execute chef client, what it will do is it will execute the recipe API recipe, that my web server recipe, from the API cookbook, not the Apache cookbook, because Apache cookbook is related to the web server role, but this test server role is related to the API my web server cookbook. See, it is using the recipe API my web server, so it is not going to host it is not going to host the custom website that we have used, because it is not using that particular role. Okay, so now if I refresh this, you can see it is serving this one. So now you'll be able to switch your roles, and you'll be able to add multiple roles, so different things you'll be able to, like if you want one particular node to act as web server and also database server, then you can add two roles, one for database and one for web server. And after testing, if you want to use that particular node only as web server, then you can just remove that database server role and all. So similarly, just by changing one item, you'll be able to change the entire functionality of that node, entire use of that node. Is it clear? So we saw how to create, like this is how you can add multiple items in the run list. Like roles, when you create, you can have run list and multiple items you can give, like comma separate items you can give. So there are a lot of options available for you to do. See, you can add multiple, like, so you can get the details of the node by using knife node show command. Then it will show the details of the role if you want to do. Then here, and just to create a new cookbook, then templating, copying the templates and other template files and the HTML file, then creating a role, like create a new web test server role. Here also you can add multiple run list items, but in my case I only showed you one, but you can use comma separate items to add multiple recipes to be executed. Then knife role list, if you give, you'll get the list of roles. This we saw. Then this also we saw. Then this is the difference, like when I used web server role, it was showing a particular custom website with HTML and templates. It was serving a custom website. But when I used this test server role, it was just serving a single web page. That was the difference that we have used for these two roles. Okay, so if you go to this particular link, you will see that you can see the power of chef. Like there are a lot of options that you can do with chef. So if you go through this link, to you'll get a broader perspective on chef and how powerful it can be. So it is very interesting and very good information is there in this particular link. So please go through this link and you will get an idea of how powerful chef can be. So as configuration management, chef can be very powerful because you can do almost anything with the help of chef. So as homework, you have to try out the chef, because chef is, as configuration management goes, chef is one of the most popular configuration management tools. Not the most popular configuration management tool, we'll see how, and we'll see that tool later. But chef is one of the most commonly used configuration management tools. So an understanding of chef will give you a better understanding of DevOps. So please go through the video multiple times. Please understand the concept of chef. Please understand the various components of chef. Please understand the pull based and push based configuration management system. Please understand how you are communicating with chef workstation, server, and nodes. then how bootstrapping happens and what bootstrapping is. All those things you should have a good understanding of, because uh, in the upcoming sessions we'll be seeing a couple more configuration management tools like Puppet and Ansible. At that time, understanding of Chef will definitely help with the understanding of those tools. Okay, so please go through this video multiple times and try out the examples that I showed you, and as homework you have to execute the commands that I showed you. Then this theme I'm using just as an example. You can download any website, any custom website you'll be able to, you can deploy that you can do as homework. And if there is any doubt when you're doing that, you can always email me and I'll get back to you. Okay, so Prashant is asking, can you please brief us the activities carried out by a DevOps engineer with respect to Chef? Prashant, see, as DevOps professional, you will be creating these recipes. You will be creating the roles. You will be creating the cookbooks. So, based on those recipes and cookbooks, the nodes will be configured. Okay, so as DevOps professional, you will be creating these roles and cookbooks and recipes, and you will be linking those roles or recipes to the corresponding nodes. That is your role as DevOps professional. Everything else Chef will take care of. Okay, now Kyadi is asking, I want to update my resume with DevOps training topics in this training. Please suggest what I should do. If you can send sample resume. Kathy, you will get lot of resume templates available via the internet. You can use that, and these tools, the tools that we are covering in this session, you'll be able to get from the PDF. Like the course content PDF will be available in your LMS portal, and from there you will be able to get the topics. Then Akhil is asking, how do you recommend to practice the Chef setup and working? I mean the infrastructure for local use to practice. Akhil, whatever I am explaining, like using Docker and the hosted Chef server, that is the perfect way for you to practice. See, whatever I am showing you, that is the most convenient way that you can work out. You can try out the commands, and you can get an understanding of these tools with the way that I am explaining it. So whatever way that I am explaining, you will be able to do without spending money. That is the reason why I am explaining it like this. So if you follow the same step as I am doing using chef container and uh, chef chef server, the hosted chef server, you will be able to try out and practice the chef setup and its working. Okay, Kathy is asking, will we get assistance for resume and placements through this training? Kathy, what you can do is you can send an email regarding this to Collabra Tech, and they'll get back to you. Okay, so this particular template that I use, the website template that I used, will be there in this particular URL if you need. But as I mentioned, you'll be able to use any template that you need. Any Kathy is asking which email ID. This tag support at Collabra, you will be able to send the email. Okay, so please try out these topics, and if you have any doubt, you can email me to this email address, and I'll get the question and I'll check and get back to you. Okay, so Akhil is asking, and this trainings for chef is useful for professional interviews. Can we add as work experience? Akhil, I would suggest you experimenting, like whatever practicals that I am showing you. I would like you to try it on your own, so that you will get on at least some hands-on experience with chef, and then you can always try out different scenarios that you may use with chef and all. But the training topics or the contents that we are covering during this session, it will definitely help with your interviews, because in the interviews you will be mostly asked, you will be mostly checked whether you have the idea about the tool and the concepts of that tool. So in that aspect, this will definitely help. But in the case of work experience, you should try out. Otherwise, you won't have the confidence to say that, okay, I have working experience with this one. But if you try out this, if you try out with different scenarios that you think about, if you look at internet, you will get there are different scenarios that a configuration management tool can be used, and those things you can try out, and once you have the experience, you'll be able to that will be an added bonus to you. Okay. Now, Nainendu is asking, have you worked on OpsWorks? Anything is different from Chef? Nainendu, OpsWorks is the configuration management tool for AWS. Like AWS developed their own configuration management tool to configure their instances. That is OpsWorks. So Chef, it is not specific for AWS, but OpsWorks is specific for AWS instances. Khyadi is asking, for interview, we need to focus on theory or practicals. Khyadi, mostly the interview questions will be based on theory, but they'll be maybe like relating practicals, they'll be asking about the scenarios, or they'll be specifying a scenario and checking whether you have the knowledge to also identify what to do during those scenarios and all. So that is what you will be, but mostly it will be theory based. Okay, so Khyadi is asking where to practice scenarios. Any website? Khyadi, you can always search the internet and you'll get lot of scenarios that you can try out with Chef or any configuration management tool. But that you'll be able to, that is easily available for you via the internet. So you just need to Google it and you will get those details. Okay. So before anything, before you're doing any of this, first thing that you have to do is you have to get a basic understanding of stuff. That is what we are providing. And please try out the experiments that I have showed you, so that once you go for go deeper into Chef, at that time you will have a good base for understanding purpose. Kelly is asking also, I have experience in other skills. How many year experience should I show in resume based on this training? Khadi, see, experience is experience. So if you are specifying, like if you have say 5 year working experience, then that much knowledge you will need for you to specify that I have this much working experience. But based on your comfort level, like these are the basics of Chef. Like once you go deep into these topics, then based on how comfortable you are with that particular topic, you can add the experience. Basically, if you are comfortable with a particular topic more than one topic, then you can add, okay, I have more experience with this particular tool than this tool. Like that, you will be able to specify. Akhil is asking, certification is necessary for DevOps or working knowledge is sufficient? Akhil, there are no standard certificates for DevOps, because as I mentioned, you can use various tools for DevOps. There is no solid way, like there is no predefined set of rules that you should use for DevOps. That is not like that. So based on your experience, you can mix and match the tools that you want to use. So working knowledge is sufficient, I would say, for DevOps. Khyadi is asking, can I ask doubts regarding previous session? Khyadi, what you can do is you can email me any doubts regarding the previous session or current session, or any doubt you have, and I'll can get back to you. Okay, so Khyadi is asking, the PDFs will be available for lifetime on LMS, or once training is over it will be over. Khyadi, the PDFs and LMS account is lifetime, so you will have this PDF available for you always. Okay, so Khyadi is asking videos also. Yes, Khyadi, videos also will be available. Nikhil is asking, how helpful will tax certification be while applying for DevOps job? Nikhil, it will be helpful because it will show that okay, you have experience with these tools. At least you know that these tools, and you have some experience with these tools. Like otherwise, if you don't have any certification, then if you say that okay, I know this tool, there is no proof of that one. So this certificate will act as that proof. Okay, so if there are no other questions, then we'll wind up today's session. So please go through the videos. Please try out the examples that I am showing, and if there is any doubt, please email me and I'll get back to you. Okay, so that's it everyone for today, and we'll see during the next weekend. Okay, so have a nice week ahead. Bye.